Okay, let's get this over with. Those of you who've been following this channel long enough may be noticing, or would have noticed if I didn't say anything, that the format for this video is vastly different than what I normally do. You might also be wondering why. Why am I randomly changing up my video format? Why am I using a script? Yes, I'm using a script. I actually wrote all of this down ahead of time, including this bit I'm saying right now. Did this toy, Legacy G1 Universe Soundwave and Friends, really just single-handedly convince me to, at the very least, test out my scripted video chops? Well, yes, kind of. Okay, look, I'm not going to drag this out any longer. I do not like this Soundwave. I don't like this mold in any of its iterations, and I don't like this figure in particular. I don't want to say bad, because that implies objectivity, and I'm sure there are plenty of people who love this thing, and that's great. I'm legitimately happy for anyone that likes this toy, or any other. Hang on to that feeling and don't let my hang-ups get you down. This, though, this isn't good. But before I get too negative, I do want to touch on what works for me. This definitely looks like Soundwave, and Buzzsaw, and Rumble. I'm going by the name on the box. Please don't try to argue that this is Frenzy in the comments. I guarantee you nobody cares less than I do. Ravage, well, they tried. Point is, just about everybody in this set makes for a decent to good representation of their character. Mr. Pokeball for a chest here hits all the right visual notes, light pipes like a freaking hero, and does all the things you'd want a Soundwave to do. Even the spring-loaded door chest thing. His proportions are a little boxy, really more like 7-year-old me awkwardly putting boxes over my arms and legs and pretending I'm a robot, but it's fine. Good, even, for a Voyager-class retail figure made out of a repurposed Siege Soundwave design, where Soundwave turns into a weird-looking spaceship that's simultaneously off-putting and way more interesting than a literal box. Paint details are nice and varied, if a bit light in some of the red, yellow, and black detailing from the toy design that's clearly molded into some areas but left a flat gray here. He has his battery gun and his battery other gun that sits over his shoulder. He comes with 3 cassettes. 3 cassettes! And at least 2 of them are pretty alright. Buzzsaw, and by extension Laserbeak, can even tenuously clip over his forearm if you line things up right. Though it's not a very strong connection, and I usually end up just folding out Buzzsaw's shield mode peg and using that instead. Even his articulation is really solid, with the reasonably expressive ball joint at the neck, a full range of motion on all of his arm joints except no wrist swivels, a waist swivel, respectable hip movement, 90-degree knees, and surprisingly good ankle tilt despite how crowded things look down there. Sure, his outward shoulder movement is bafflingly hampered by an apparent need to snap between straight down and about 45 degrees out, then it's all friction for the remaining 45 degrees. But you can cheat that first 45 fairly easily, so it's more head-scratching than annoying. Buzzsaw looks really good, even if he's just alternate colors Laserbeak. I still love how they managed to compact and simplify the Masterpiece Laserbeak design into something like this. It's a clever refinement, and he looks good in yellow. Ravage still looks like a cat wearing a paper shopping bag, but I respect the attempt. The comparably sparse deco that's pretty much all black with some minor silver highlights also works well. He's not all that fun to transform, and I prefer to keep him in cassette mode, but he's not hateful or anything. Rumble, again, using the name on the box, don't bother arguing with me please, was the biggest surprise for me. I'm pretty sure I'd never experienced this particular mold before. Earthrise Knock is not this mold, and that's the only Hasbro retail humanoid cassette I've handled outside of the G1 originals, but I have to say, I'm actually impressed. No, seriously. Normally I chuck Rumble and or Frenzy in the garbage where they belong. That was sarcasm, but I legitimately like this little guy. In all honesty, I think he might be my favorite part of the sets, which feels so weird to say. His transformation is simple, but really effective. He's got all the articulation I could want from a figure this size, outside of maybe elbows and maybe a bicep swivel. And he's got pretty much all the important paint details covered. Or at least there are enough of them that I don't feel like I need to care about what may or may not have been picked out. You get his pile drivers involved, and he even has just the right amount of articulation and range to do the thing. Look at him. He's doing the thing. I don't even care about doing the thing, but I still love that he does it. Unfortunately, that's about where my praise stops, because all that's left is to talk about Soundwave again. Alright, let's transform this thing. So, This is just the Netflix and by extension Generation Select Shattered Glass Soundwave mold. Same exact transformation, but if you're not familiar with it, just going to get rid of his weapons. This just goes off to the side. This pushes in and kinda settles in place. Like it doesn't fall out, but it's really easy to knock out a position, but just push that in until it stops. And those go off to the side. Now, going to straighten out the arms. You want to rotate the bicep 90 degrees so that the backs of the forearms are pointed up, and then flip the fists in. Then disconnect the shoulders from the torso and bring them back. But before you bring them back all the way, because this does get in the way of the little door here, you want to open up this door, flip the head back, and then close this up. Then, actually, before we bring it around all the way, we also want to rotate torso 180 degrees. Now bring it in, and then these tabs on the backs of the shoulders will tab in here, and then these bits in the center will tab together. And that will hold all that in place. I'm just going to get these little hip skirts up and out of the way a little bit. Okay. This panel can just kind of flip up to get out of the way a little bit. You want to straighten out the feet. Open up these panels. Fold out these gray pieces and then flip the feet inside the backs of the shins. And now these pieces will come down and this peg on the inside of this panel will plug in here. And this little hook tab will hook in right in here. I'm going to bring this down and kind of curl this around the foot and then push it in so that it pegs into the foot. And I find it's best to apply pressure about where the peg is rather than down here, because I feel like you'd flex the door if you do it that other way. So bring this down, line it up, and then just push it down. And finally, rotate the legs so that the tape deck detail is pointed forward. Bend the knees, bring the hips up, and then this will tab into the side of the body. There's a slot here and a slot here. This is a tab, this is a tab, so just curl all this in and plug it in. And just squeeze it, and same on this side. Bring it in, plug it in, give it a squeeze. It does not go in as much as I would prefer, but whatever. You can actually kind of see it's tilted out slightly, like it's plugged in more up here, but it's not going straight down. It's weird. I don't know what's going on here. I think the thighs may be ever so slightly longer. I don't know. But anyway, these little flaps under here fold out, and then there are these little tabs right here that these slots peg over. And it goes, but it kind of sits like bowed in a little bit. So I don't know, your mileage may vary, but there we go. There is the tape deck mode, and then for the weapons, you just take them and plug them in back here and back here. And if you want to get this thing involved, this can plug in right up here. There we go. His transformation is fine. I'm not mad about how basic it is. It's just a blue humanoid robot turning into a box. But I'm still kind of disappointed. It's more or less just the G1 figure again, except this time you can't store his weapons in the battery compartments. It's fine. It's not annoying, but it's also not fun or interesting. It just kind of gets the job done. But why does the alt mode end up looking like this? Anyone here that's watched any of my previous videos knows I try not to be overly critical when I talk about Transformers, especially their alt modes, because those are never the most important part of a figure for me. But this... Okay, I'm actually going to say this is bad. Yes, this is very identifiably G1 Soundwave's alt mode. It's a micro cassette recorder. If the shape was taken from a Close Encounters style mashed potato sculpture. It's just so lumpy. None of the surfaces level out with each other. They don't even try to. And I'm just talking about the front view where he looks best. Forget the sides or the back. Why does the faux button panel have to stick out this much? Why are there literal holes in the middle of the tape deck? Why does the chest stick out from his legs so much and the door stick out so far from the chest? It's like a layer cake. I am admittedly playing this up a little bit for the sake of sarcasm, and I do understand that price point and design constraints are a thing. I've said as much in previous videos about figures I'd argue are objectively not as good as this one. But this is one of G1's most beloved characters, which people had been wanting to see as a cassette recorder again for a very long time, particularly at the retail level. I feel like there has to have been a way to smooth out some of this stuff, right? Hopefully we'll eventually get a Studio Series 86 version and it won't be cribbing from this mold. Or at least if it does, it'll be heavily retooled to the point that it's practically unrecognizable. But as of writing, this is what we have for a retail tape deck Soundwave that's more than 4 inches tall. Also, core Soundwave's alt mode is cleaner, even with the feet. But none of these gripes compare to my biggest complaints. You can probably tell what it is. Heck, you've probably noticed it several minutes ago. To be clear, this does not make me hate this Soundwave. I don't hate this Soundwave. It doesn't even make me like this particular iteration of the mold less. It's just, it completely perplexes me to the point where I just get pissed off because I cannot figure out how this happened. The figure's ID stamp, or whatever it's called, is sitting right there on the front of the alt mode. I don't want to throw around a term like inexcusable because it sounds pedantic and hyperbolic, but this is legit inexcusable. Not just because it defaces the alt mode, which, as a reminder, is kind of a key part of this particular mold, especially when the other releases are either a Walmart exclusive prone to yellowing, or a limited Generation Selects release that's also prone to yellowing. Now, the real reason this bothers me so much is because it's not on the other versions of this mold. Both Generation Selects and Netflix Soundwave do not have this stamp in a spot that places it front and almost center on the alt mode. It's just this one, just Legacy G1 Universe Soundwave. And it's not just mine. I've taken a look at some other videos and photos to make sure this is just where they decided to place it for some reason. I know in the grand scheme of Transformers toy things, this isn't a big deal. And it's even less of a big deal in the actual grand scheme of things. But why was this change made? Why was it decided to ruin the alt mode, or I guess in this case make it look even worse, with the ID stamp thingy when 2 previous releases never did this? It's just such a bafflingly terrible decision. Anyway, back to the topic at hand, Legacy G1 Universe Soundwave. I've said it throughout this video, but I don't hate this figure. I just don't particularly like it either. I ordered this set out of a combination of FOMO and misremembering my reason for previously selling off Netflix Soundwave, which, yes, I used to have Netflix Soundwave, I just never got around to making a video on him at the time. I thought I got rid of him because he was starting to yellow. Once I got this set open, though, I realized it was actually because I just don't enjoy messing with him all that much. He looks fine in robot mode and poses well, even comes with 2 cool accessory bots, and Ravage. But I have better, more interesting, and more enjoyable Soundwave figures already. Not just expensive third-party nonsense like Robot Paradise Acoustic Wave either. I like animated Soundwave more because his alt mode is neat and looks way better, plus his transformation is cool and Laserbeak turns into a freaking guitar. That's awesome. I even prefer Reactivate Soundwave, except take out the even, because Reactivate Soundwave is actually fantastic and people are too quick to write him off because his product shots were weirdly stretched out and he came packaged with one of the most killer Optimus Prime figures we've gotten in the past 5 years or more. It's a really good Prime. But seriously, Reactivate Soundwave rules. Looks better in alt mode, looks more interesting in robot mode, and is just as dynamic as this one. Okay, I think I'm done. I don't know how to go about ending a scripted video because this is my first, but thanks for watching. I've got links to Ko-fi and Patreon in the video description and on the end card if you want to support the channel. Or you can do typical YouTube stuff like, comment, share, or subscribe. Thank you all for watching. Let me know what you think of this figure or any other iteration of this figure. Feel free to chime in down below. I do enjoy hearing from you all, despite how negative I've been here. I do apologize for that. I feel like I've been way too negative and ranty. I swear I'm normally not like this. Hopefully it turned out okay. Maybe I'll do more videos like this in the future. I don't know. I guess we'll find out together. Anyway, don't buy this Soundwave unless you actually want him. Like, if you want a G1 Soundwave and you think this guy looks cool, then by all means, get him. Just learn from my mistakes. Don't get him because you're worried you're missing out on something, because it's just not worth it if that's the reason you're getting him. Rumble's still cool, though.